In this video, I'm going to explain to you why results require personal sacrifices so that you can attain exactly what you want. And specifically for game developers, I just want to recognize that, we are human and we have a lot of activities, events, responsibilities, things that demand a lot of our time. And when you really break it down, like we're already very busy and it's pretty overwhelming to, stay on guard with what life throws at us. Combine that with the fact that, as a game dev, you have to work on a lot of features. You got to work on your characters, on your mechanics, on your programming. There's just a lot of work to do. And so when you combine all of this, you recognize that there's a lot to do. And when you apply balance between your normal life and your game development life, you're not making that much progress. And so as I was working with a lot of other developers to speedrun their process, I quickly realized that, personal sacrifices can allow you to go a little bit faster, right? But there's specific ways to do this so that it becomes more healthy rather than a destructive format, right? So being said, I'm going to teach you how to properly throw away balance outside the window so that you can complete your projects as a game developer. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get this bread. Number one, you want to have a seasonal approach with work. Similar to a daytime job, you probably work 8 hours a day and then you have the rest of the day to rest, relax, clean, cook, go to the gym, do all these things, right? I want to zoom out for a second and talk about how when you're working on a project, you should probably assess a large period of time where you're just completely focused at that project, right? This could be a week, 2 weeks, a month, or even 3 months. I personally wouldn't recommend you going over 3 months simply because that's like a lot of burnout probabilities, right? The idea is you only want to like narrow down on what actually matters, and then once you are in that zone of just again creating and building and iterating, you really need to cut distractions, you need to cut socializing, you need to cut a lot of these things. It may sound extreme when I say it like this, but again, if you do this in a smaller periods of time, then yeah, it's not a big deal. But if you do it in a very elongated, hey, don't talk to anybody for 3 months, it might sound a little bit more extreme. The point is, once you complete your project, you can go ahead, jump back to your normal life, allow the balance that you kind of want to come back in, have fun with that. And then when you're ready to work on your next endeavor, you go back and just really focus on that. And focus means a lot of things, and we'll talk about that here in a second, but always work in periods of time, or in other words, view work as a seasonal approach. The next thing is, and I firmly believe this is something that we tend to struggle with a lot, is that we need to compartamentalize our development. And what this means is you need to take a task and absolutely work everything about that task so that once it's complete, you don't necessarily revisit it. And this might sound controversial because as a game developer, it's very important to iterate, to try things out, to experiment, right? And there's a lot of merit to that. And that is a valid design approach to work on. What I'm saying is, if you're going to work on your game mechanics, you should probably do everything necessary to make the mechanics work. Then you want to work on the level design. Then you want to work on like the overworld. Then you want to put art placeholders. Then you want to get playtesting. Then you want to do art and polishing later. The whole point that I'm trying to say is you never want to work on a mechanic and then 2 months down the line, you're making the levels, you're making the bosses, and then you recognize, wait a minute, my mechanic is flawed. I have to go back and fix that. But by fixing that, I now have to redesign some levels, redesign some bosses. The point is that if you iterate one major core aspect of your game, and if that change affects everything in the project, you're going to have way more work than necessary. And so, what I'm saying is, if you have a core aspect, like I said, a mechanic or a level, fix it, finish it, and have it at a level where it's so satisfying that you probably don't need to go back to fix it. There's balance patches that you can work on, and there's other little micro optimizations you can make. But if you're fundamentally changing the foundation of your game, that's going to affect literally everything around your game. Being said, never jump between tasks. Always focus on one, finish it completely, and try to get it to like a 95% passing rate so that you can continue. If you don't do this, you're going to create more work at the end of the day. And this is what's going to lead to burnout. This is what's going to lead to just, again, a lot of like unfocused work and effort that's just everywhere. This is a really important topic to really bring about. So, again, when we talk about personal sacrifices, you really want to like do it and suppress the will of like not going back to it later. This is cleared up with my next point here. You want to prolong your boredom. So, like I said, imagine you're making your mechanic. And you're like, oh, it's good, it's that, but I think this would be really cool if I added a character jumping in the background. And so let's say you're working on, I guess, let's say like a sword fighting mechanic, right? What would be interesting is, oh, I have a character who is using a sword to attack, whatever. Let me just make the character, right? Like the sprite art, the work, every artistic part of it, and then I'll implement the sword mechanic again. Okay, the character is like really tall. Maybe I need to attach, or what do you call it, offset the sword. Okay, now I gotta like go back and forth. The more you go back and forth, the more distracted you get with your actual work. And this is a little bit difficult to explain when you realize that, yeah, game development is about iteration, but there's an approach where you can simply work on one part, level that part up, and continue it until that entire task is completed. Once you recognize that, then suddenly you can have a very streamlined process to building your game. This might be a skill and this might take some time to get used to, but I genuinely recommend that approach more than anything. And by the way, imagine you're making the game and halfway in you go, a website would be really cool right now. Well, are you in your marketing phase? Probably not, right? Like you probably want to get the prototype out first, then you want to get the beta. Then once you have like a really strong polished, build, yeah, maybe you want to start your marketing efforts, maybe you want to start some other phases. Do not disrespect the phases that you're in. If you're going to work on your mechanics, do your mechanics. If you're going to do your art, do your art. If you're going to do your marketing stuff, do your marketing stuff. But by you jumping back and forth, you're not focused on your task. Always, always, always try to complete one massive mini project before you jump to the next other mini project. And this is what we call phases: prototype, then beta, then marketing, then alpha, then launch, then post launch. Always work within phases. And it might be boring. It might be difficult to stay focused on that. That's the whole point. The more you laser focus on what's important, the quickly you can finish that part and then move on to the next part. The next point that I have to establish is you need a termination point or an end point. Basically, if you're always working on something and you don't know what the conclusion of your project is, you're going to just endlessly keep making content for the sake of making content. If you truly cannot say, "Oh, when I have 7 bosses, when I have 10 characters, when I have 3 levels, when I have these 10 weapons, then my game is done." Then okay. If you can't establish that, again, you will just continue to build and build and build and build. And what happens is you end up prolonging the entire project to the point where you're recognizing, hey, why am I doing this? Like, when can I actually understand that I'm getting closer to finishing the goal? How can I metrically see how far I am versus where I need to go? And so I promise you that the moment you understand, hey, my game is going to have XYZ, and then once you implement XYZ, then guess what? You completed the goal, you completed the task, you completed the project. If you take the iterative approach, where you're literally saying, hey, I'm going to build this mechanic. Oh, this is cool. I think this would be cool to add. Oh, let me try that. Oh, let me try this. Oh, let me experiment here. Let me experiment there. All of these features that you keep adding continue to add, what do you call it? Scope creep. You end up just building more. Now you have a larger orchestration to kind of like re-narrow down to where you want to finish. And it just becomes more difficult to, build your game. It's ideal to just have a huge list of everything you already want in your game, start filtering to what actually matters, and then literally just implementing all of that, and that's it. And so, once again, if you don't know where you're running, when do you know you're going to stop, right? So think about like a marathon. If there's the 5K that you have to run, at the end of the 5K there's a giant flag that says, oh, this is where you're going. Okay, cool. Imagine you run a 5K and you just make a 90-degree angle, then you go to downtown, you take a train. It's like you need to stay focused on where you have to go. The reason why I have to tell you this is because there are going to be features that you want to build. There are going to be fun things, fun ideas that you really want to add. And there might be these last minute distractions where you're like, hey, it would be so cool if my character just did this one thing. I promise it's not going to ruin the game, but like, yeah, it might add a little scope creep, but like, it'll be super cool. This is where I say you have to do the personal sacrifice of suppressing that urge and recognizing that that feature could be done in a second game or somewhere else, right? Just write the list of what is necessary, follow that list, and keep going. It sounds mechanical, and like I said, it might be a skill to actually keep working on, right? But the idea is that if you continue to have this open mind of just add this, add that, and scope creep, again, the project becomes so bloated that it becomes extremely difficult to finish. And so if you have the resources and capabilities of doing that, for sure, that's a passive development cycle that you can have a lot of fun with. And maybe you do have, the financial power, or maybe you do have the manpower to, the team to actually like work on these things. And that's great. But what I'm telling you is that for you to be more practical and to actually launch your commercial game often, you need to find where you end and do not disrespect the bounds of what that means. The next thing I'm going to talk about, and this is kind of like you can, but you shouldn't. This is kind of like a mixed opinion here, and this is from personal experience. Is what if you try Hermit Mode or Monk Mode, right? And so when I was developing Dodge King, I made it in 90 days. So it's a 3-month development cycle. I added all the things you would expect in a roguelike. Very simple game, very fun, all these things. Okay. The thing is, in those 3 months, I genuinely did not socialize. I cut all my social media distractions. I was literally just, I would work, go back home, and just immediately turn on the computer, turn on Unity, and just focus on building everything based off of the list of tasks that my game requires to be launched. So again, I needed a settings menu, I needed a start menu, I needed a save menu. Okay, I needed these characters, I needed these mechanics, then I needed these enemies. Okay, I need a level generator. I need, these were the things that I had to do. And so the reason why I'm telling you that this is like a good idea but also terrible is that when you focus so strongly, meaning focus is just getting rid of distractions. That's really all it is. If you get rid of every single distraction, bore yourself, right? As in, like, do not fall into the temptation of, oh, I want to try these new things, I want to experiment. Literally just follow the list of requirements that you need to build your game. You'll quickly realize just how truly fast games can be made. The problem with this is in this hermit monk mode, as a human, right? Again, you crave socialize, you crave kind of being lazy sometimes, you kind of want to like take a break, right? And so there's spaces for that. But if you go too extreme, you're going to burn out. But then again, if you go too passive, your game is just going to be an endless project where you just keep making stuff for the sake of making it. So I propose this thing called the tackler approach, which is try to do hermit or monk mode as much as you can. But when you physically understand, okay, I actually need to socialize, okay, I actually need a break, I actually probably want to take a day off or something, then it's fine to take a step back and do that. But all I'm saying is there's a large portion where you need to really suppress that inner will of like having fun, experimenting. Again, the distraction that you typically want to induce yourself with to like not finish your game is always going to be in front of your mind, no matter what. Like, this is just human nature. Like, we're always like trying to find the path of least resistance, right? And so if you can continue suppressing that super often, and again, for a period of like 3 months, for example, and if you scope your game to the point where it can be done within 3 months, then you can shoot your game really quickly. Like, it's really not that difficult. The hard part is just the human mind trying to say, oh, let's monkey around, let's go, and deep down you're kind of just like, well, I know I want to, but I shouldn't. And then you have this internal conflict, and then you're trying to like fight the urge of like trying to relax versus, like actually making progress. So all I'm trying to say is that hermit mode is effective. I don't recommend it all the way because it's just the quickest way to burn out. But if you can engage in hermit mode for like a very long period of time and then have those like small breaks, I think that would be a very wise way to deal with the situation. And remember, in all of this, never abandon your real world responsibilities. Again, you probably work, you probably maintain a family, you probably have some other compromises that you have to take care of. Always make sure that that gets involved within the context of what your monk mode looks like. All right. And like I just said, all focus really is just the elimination of distractions. And so the biggest sinks of time that I would argue genuinely come down to social media, the consumption of pornography, and just vices that again hold you back, right? And this might be socializing with friends that probably don't have the best interest for you. This might be taking that road trip that takes 5 days long when it could have just been, a quick visit to this restaurant. There's a lot of things to pay attention to. And like I said, in human nature, very simple, very very common for us to again go for the path of least resistance. We want to feel relaxed. We want to feel comfortable. Suppressing that and again sacrificing that comfortability is what's going to get you to make more progress, right? So if I told you, hey, delete social media, don't get on it, right? If you're actively doom scrolling, if you're addicted to social media, if you're checking your phone every 5 minutes, that's going to be a very difficult thing to do, but you can build a habit towards that. If you currently consume and watch porn, and if I told you, hey, stop doing that, then yeah, that's something that you have to work on and like really fight because it might be addictive, it might be enticing, but these are things that you really have to cut down. It gets more controversial when I say, hey, don't talk to your friends that much, right? I mean, you can send text messages, phone calls, right? But does every phone call conversation have to be 2+ hours? Do you have to hang out with your friends every single day, right? Do you have to get ice cream 3 times a week, right? Like, these things can be reduced to weekend outings. Maybe you plan something out once a month. And it comes down to your character, who you are as a person and such. Maybe you're very social and like that's something that you really want to do. Okay, good for you. Maybe you're really antisocial, you don't care about that part, then this part becomes easier for you, and that's great. But the whole point that I'm trying to assess is that you'll quickly realize that you will have more time sinks around your current lifestyle simply because you're not recognizing, oh, is this actually directly uh, accelerating my game development process? Is me on a phone call with my friend going to build code for my game? Probably not. Is me going on social media doom scrolling for 2 hours or whatever, is that directly making progress from my game? No. So as a result, you need to get rid of those distractions and vices as quickly as possible. The next part, and this is just a reminder again, you're human. Okay, you really are human. Again, you're gonna have these issues. All of the time progresses that you're gonna make, all of these progressions, all of these sprints, every piece of acceleration that you're going to move within your uh, game just comes down to you at the end of the day. And it really comes down to how firm your boundaries are. If you're a person that, you're like, oh, I just want to do game development passively, I want to have fun with it. Okay, don't expect to finish things quickly because you're just making things for the fun of it. And that's good. Like, you can definitely experiment. And I do believe that it's extremely valid to just take the fun approach to see what happens when you program a new mechanic. Like, that's totally fine. But what I'm saying is, if you have the expectation that you want to make a game within 3 months, but you don't apply the boundaries or the rules or the stakes necessary to pressure yourself into doing those, development cycles within 3 months, you're not going to get those results. And so it really comes down to: are you willing to suppress certain feelings? Are you willing to sacrifice, again, how you spend time with your hobbies or your interests or your friends? Are you willing to cut those side distractions, right? And remember, there's so many things that we already do. Maybe you have a daytime job. Maybe you travel a lot. Maybe there's a lot of spontaneous events. Maybe you have like a giant hobby that consumes a lot of time. Maybe you're in a sports team. Maybe you like working out a lot. Maybe you take your time cooking. Maybe you're running a side business. There's a lot of things that you can do. Maybe you're in a relationship, right? All of these things matter. That's part of the human experience. The question is, how much are you willing to tolerate, or how much are you willing to balance, suppress, move, change to prioritize game development? All right. That's the whole point of this. Another thing that I was learning when I was working with a lot of my clients at the consultation calls that I host here is that you'll quickly realize that when you write an actual list of the things that you do on your day to day, you'll quickly realize just how many things you do that aren't directly related to your game development cycle. And I thought this was kind of shocking because you may assume, oh, yeah, it's pretty obvious that if I want to make a game, I just make a game, right? But like, I have a lot of time. Maybe I feel like I don't have a lot of time. But then when you ask that question, you kind of recognize, wait a minute, where does my time actually go to? And so again, maybe you spend 8 hours on your work, right? Maybe you spend an hour at the gym. Maybe you spend an hour getting ready to go to work and commuting and, like things that are expected within like your normal lifestyle, right? But then again, if you look at your screen time, you might be on social media too much. If you look at phone call hours, right? Like, you can see, oh, maybe I'm chatting too much. Maybe you're on a Discord and you're like yapping a lot, right? Maybe you're playing a lot of video games, which good for the developers, right? But like, maybe that's also getting in your way of development, right? Maybe you're taking salsa dance classes every Monday. Don't worry about that. The point is, like, there are things that you can kind of just take a step back and say, is this actually necessary? And again, maybe it is, maybe it's not. But really, I want you to actually get a piece of paper, list down all the things you do on a day-to-day basis, and quickly realize there's a lot of activities that you probably do not need to be engaging in. And once you recognize that, you'll say, wait a minute, that's kind of weird. Then when you write down a list of the things that you actually have to do, which is one, make a game, and two, subscribe to Fast Forward My Game, you'll quickly realize, whoa, like, I don't have to do much to, make progress. So what I'm trying to say is that you'll quickly see that there's a lot of short-term activities we do that just don't hold that much value. Write it down, analyze it carefully, and you'll quickly notice, maybe I need to change this habit. Maybe I need to change this routine. Maybe I really don't need this part of my life right now. All right. I will also argue that if you want balance, right? If you want the healthy lifestyle of like, oh, I want to work, and then I want to do game dev, and then I want to socialize, and I want to do all these things. You're absolutely entitled to do that. And I do think having a balanced lifestyle is a privilege if you're able to afford that, if you're able to have the capabilities to, engage in those activities. That's absolutely amazing if you want to do that. What I will also say is that average is what happens when balance is applied, because now you're spreading your energy, your time, your focus, your efforts on these multiple facets of your life, when in reality you have the capability of channeling a lot of it into one major effort, specifically for game dev, right? Like I said, you have the option to flex it in, say, oh, I want to focus on games right now, maybe I don't want to do this, maybe I want to do that. Completely your choice. But the more focus you put on game dev, logically, the more progress you're going to make at it. So again, make the list and really find out what you need, and then ask yourself, do I actually want to, double down on game dev? Am I actually willing to build those habits to do so? And you'll quickly realize, wait a minute, this is possible. And suddenly games become easier to make, or faster to make in this case. And lastly, all I'm going to say here is you'll quickly realize that friction is everything that we just discussed in this video. Like, are you distracted? Are you using your time wisely? Are you focused? Do you have these habits that you're trying to build, right? If you know where you're going to end up at, if you know exactly what your game looks like, if you know where the ending or all the requirements that your game needs, if you have all that enlisted, then it becomes easier to go towards that trajectory. And so if you know, again, the ending of your project. Okay, I need these amount of bosses. I need these features. I need to play test my game this amount of time. I need to market. I need to send like 25 posts doing this. I need to contact these developers. I need to do. If you just list down everything in a roadmap fashion, you will know where to go. And then by you knowing where to go, you reduce the amount of friction or obstacles that are going to show up. And again, the lower the friction you have in a development cycle, the faster and smoother the pipeline process is. You'll just streamline everything. So being said, I really hope this video helps. I have more videos on this channel if you're interested in looking at more development processes. So go ahead and check that out. And being said, I really hope that you take the time to, reflect on what you are currently doing to your day-to-day life and just ask yourself, what are the things that are actually necessary versus what do I want to accomplish? Get rid of those obstacles, get rid of those distractions, try to find out exactly where you need to go. It might sound controversial, but again, really recognize you need to do these activities that you are proclaiming that you might do, right? Look at that, evaluate it, and at the end of the day, you're going to figure out, wait a minute, if I get rid of this, I might be able to make games quickly.